Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Math Mantra. I'm Shraddha Rathod here and I'm back with some tips and tricks to make math easy. Let's see what is today's topic. Today's topic is basics of fractions. So we are going to learn today what is fractions and what are the different terms that are used in fractions. So just the basic part of fractions, and then maybe in the next video we'll go in detail about fractions. So this is from grade 3 onwards. The kids, I think in grade 2 also you have fractions, but that is just a pictorial form. But actually with numbers, the abstract form starts from grade 3. So let's get started. So let's understand what's fraction. Fraction is nothing but a part of a whole. Let's take one example. Suppose this is a pizza. Okay? And this pizza is been cut into 8 pieces. Okay. Now, if there are 8 people who are going to share this pizza, each person is going to get 1 piece since there are 8 pieces in this pizza, right? So, the fraction of this pizza, the part of this pizza that is eaten by each one of them. So, each person is going to get 1 piece out of total 8 pieces. So, each person is going to eat 1/8 part of this pizza. 1/8, which is also written as 1/8. Okay? This is the word form of 1/8. Now suppose instead of 8 people, now there are 4 people. Now since there are 4 people, each person can eat 2 parts or 2 pieces, right? So the fraction of pizza eaten by each person can be represented as 2 pieces out of 8, which you can also write as 2/8. Now if you see the difference here, it's just 8 and here I have added an S because I have more than one part here. That's why I have added an S here. So it's 2/8. Now if there are 2 people who are sharing the same pizza, now because there are 2 people, each one of them will get half of the pizza, right? Because it's just shared by 2 people. So each person will get, now there are 2 ways of representing this. If you count individual pieces, there are 4 pieces out of 8. So you can also say this as 4/8. Also, if you pay attention to the entire pizza, you'll come to know that half part of the pizza has been eaten by a single person. So half part, this much. This is the half of that pizza which is been eaten by single person. So we can also represent this as half. So 4/8 can also be represented as 1/2. Now this we'll learn later. Right now you just pay attention to the pictorial part, like when it is picture form given to you, how to represent the shaded part along with the whole. So if there are 2 parts shaded, you will count 2 parts out of total 8 parts. If there are 3 parts shaded, you will say it is 3/8. So always in the denominator, you will have the number of equal parts in that particular figure. Like for here, there are 8 equal parts. Now you may also have some figure with only 4 parts, 4 equal parts. Now since there are 4 equal parts and if one part of it is shaded, we can say this is 1/4. So in the denominator you will always have the equal number of parts that the picture or the figure is divided into. So 4 goes here and 1 goes here. This place is called as the denominator. And the top place is called as the numerator. Okay. So the denominator is always the parts that are like the equal parts, the equal sized parts that the figure is divided into. Some figure which is divided like this. Okay. Now if you see, this part over here is much more bigger than the other parts, right? And this part is the smallest of all. Now this figure, I will say that it is not correctly divided or it is not equally divided into equal parts. That means each part of this figure is not of equal size. So when you have such a figure, you can't represent this figure in form of a fractions. Okay. So whenever you want to represent a figure in form of fractions, it's needed that all the parts in the fraction are of equal size. Okay. Now this I can't represent as 1/4 because the 4 parts over here are not of equal size. So it's very much necessary that whenever you are representing fractions, the individual parts which are there in that whole should always be of equal size. Only then you can represent that particular figure as a part of a fraction. Okay. Let's take some more examples. Now I have a rectangle here and I am dividing it into 6 equal parts, right? There are 6 equal parts in this rectangle. So when I am going to represent this rectangle, like the shaded parts in this rectangle, when I am going to represent, my denominator is going to be 6 because there are 6 equal parts. Now I have shaded one piece or one part out of this 6. So this will be represented in a fraction form as 1/6. Let's take the same rectangle divided into 6 parts. Again, because there are 6 equal parts, the denominator is going to be 6. Now I have one part shaded here, one part shaded here, and one part shaded here. So all together I have 1, 2 and 3 parts shaded. So because there are 3 parts shaded, I am going to represent it as 3/6. So 6 is the denominator and 3 is the numerator. Okay, I hope you understood how to write the fractions and what's the numerator and the denominator. Now let's understand the different terms that are used in fractions. Okay. Now the very first term that is used in fraction is like fractions. Now what do we mean by like fractions? Like fractions are the ones who have the same denominator. Okay. So the fraction who has same denominator, like I have, for example, 4/6, I have 2/6, I have 1/6, I have 3/6, I have 5/6. All these fractions have the same number in the denominator, 6. So these all are called as like fractions. If I have anything like this, 4/6 and 4/8 or 4/10 or 4 18ths or 4/5. So I have the same number in the numerator. But if you focus on the denominator, all the denominators are different from each other. So when you have different denominators, then these fractions will be called as unlike fractions. Okay, so we have like fractions with same denominators. Even if the numerators are different, that's fine. We have unlike fractions where the denominators are different. Okay, now let's understand another set of terms that are used in fractions. Proper fractions and improper fractions. Now what do we mean by proper fractions? Proper fractions are such fractions where your numerator is always smaller than the denominator. Like for example, if I have 2/6, 4/5, 7/8, 9/12, 3/16 and so on. So if you focus on the numerators and the denominators, you will see that everywhere your numerators are smaller than the denominators. Such fractions are called as proper fractions. And you have improper fractions, which is just opposite of this. That means the numerator is greater than the denominators. So for example, I have 4/3, then 6/4, 5/2, then I have 11/8, or I have 4 I have already 14/6, something like that. So here you have numerators which are greater than the denominators. Now these improper fractions can also be represented as mixed form. Now let us first visualize what are these improper fractions and how we can convert them into mixed forms. Now suppose I have a square which is divided into 4 equal parts, and I have another same square divided into 4 equal parts. Okay. Now from the first square I have all the parts shaded. So to represent this square in a form of a fraction, it's either 1 whole or 4/4, because the square is divided into 4 equal parts and all 4 parts are shaded, so it's 4/4. And in the second square I have just 1 part shaded, which is nothing but 1/4. Now together this whole fraction form will be 1 whole plus 1/4 or 4/4 plus 1/4. 1 plus 1/4 is nothing but 1/1/4, and 4/4 plus 1/4 I can, because I have the same denominators, I will directly add the numerators, which will give me 5/4. Or if you see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 parts shaded out of 4 equal parts in each figure. Okay, so this form is the mixed form and this form is the improper form. Okay, now if you don't have a figure in front of you, then how to convert improper and mixed form? Okay, now let's see if I have an example like 16/7. Okay, now by looking at the fraction itself, you come to know that since the numerator is greater than the denominator, this is an improper fraction. Now this improper fraction, if I want to convert into a mixed form, I will see that in this 16 parts, how many holes do I have? So I can do it by two ways. I can directly divide 16 by 7. So I'll get 7 times 2 as 14, and 16 minus 14 is nothing but 2 remainder. Okay, so when I do the division, this 16 sevens, which is the improper form, when I am going to write it in the mixed form, 7 will still stay in the denominator, and the quotient what you got goes as whole, and the remainder what you got denominator. So this form 16 sevens we can write as 2 sevens, where we have 2 wholes plus 2 sevens fraction part. Okay. Now what is the other way to do it? What you can do is 16 I can split up as 7 plus 7 plus 2, which is 14 plus 2, again 16. Now because there are 2 wholes, like this is 7 equal parts, right? So 7 one whole, 7 another whole. So there are 2 wholes and the remainder 2. So 2 7. This is also one way to write it. But the easier way is to do by division, because you directly get the answer as the quotient will go in the wholes and the remainder will go in the numerator. Let's take some more example of this improper and mixed form. So suppose I have a number. Suppose now I have a mixed form. Suppose I have 2 1/3 and I want to convert it into improper form. Now to convert a mixed form into improper form, you will multiply the denominator and the whole number, multiply the denominator and the whole, and add the numerator to the answer, to the product. So denominator here multiplied with the numerator, 2 times 3 is 6, plus the numerator, which is 7. So your answer is going to be 7/3. Always write the same number in the denominator. So this is the mixed form, and this is what you got when you converted into improper form. So always remember, only improper forms can be converted into mixed forms, because they are more than the denominator. That means they are more than the wholes, right? That's why they can be converted into mixed form. Proper forms are already smaller than the denominator, smaller than the whole, so you can't convert them into mixed form. Only improper forms can be converted to mixed forms, and vice versa. Mixed forms can be converted to improper forms. Okay, clear? Now let's see another important term, that is equivalent fractions. Now what do we mean by equivalent fractions? Just by the term itself we come to know that equi means equal, valent is value. So the fractions that have equal values are called as equivalent fractions. Let's take an example. Suppose I have a strip and I have divided it into half, and I shade one part out of it. So this is half, right? The fraction representing that shaded part is half. Now I have the same size of the rectangular strip, but now I am dividing that into 4 parts, and I am shading 2 parts out of it. So the fraction represented by the shaded parts is 2/4 now, because there are 4 equal parts and 2 parts are shaded. Now I have the same strip and I am dividing into 8 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I am shading 4 parts from this. So my fraction is 4/8. If you focus on the part that is shaded, this much, this much, and this much. So if you see that it is completely shading every time half of the entire strip, right? So because the fraction, the shaded part which is represented by these fractions is equal in size, half, 2/4 and 4/8 will be said to be as equivalent fractions because their shaded parts represent the same size in all the three strips. Okay, so they are all equivalent fractions. Now, another term, when you realize what are equivalent fractions, another term that comes into picture is simplest form. Now, what do I mean by simplest form? Like, if I see this fraction half, I have a 1 here and a 2 here. Okay. Now 1 I can only divide by 1 and 2 I can divide by 1 also. But after division I am going to get the same fraction, that is half. Whereas this 2/4 over here, this 2 over here I can divide by 2 and the 4 also I can divide by 2. And always remember, whenever you are using division or multiplication in fractions, you are supposed to use the same number in the numerator as well as the denominator. You can't use different numbers. So now when I am using 2 to divide both 2 and 4, I get a 1 on the top. 2 divided by 2 is 1 and 4 divided by 2 is 2. Similarly, if I use 4/8, for 4/8 if I use 4 to divide both 4 and 8 in the numerators and the denominators, again I'll get half. So half is called here as the simplest form, or you can also call it as the lowest form. There are different names for this, or the reduced form. Now what is this form? This form is such that you cannot divide it more further now. Now half I can't divide more further. So when you reach to a fraction where you cannot divide further, that fraction is called as the lowest form or the simplest form or the reduced form. Now over here I got half for each one of them, and because the lowest form for all three fractions is equal, is half, all the three fractions will be called as equivalent fractions. Okay, we'll see how to find equivalent fractions, okay, with some examples. Now let's see how to find equivalent fractions for some pair of fractions. Suppose I have a fraction 2/7 and I need some equivalent fractions for this fraction 2/7. So I am going to multiply the numerator and the denominator with the same number, let's say 2, which gives me 4 and 14s. So 2/7 and 4/14 are the equivalent fractions now. Similarly, if the same fraction 2/7, if I multiply with 3, then I'll get 6 21s. If I multiply with 4, I'll get 8 28s. If I multiply with 5, I get 10 35s. So all these are equivalent fractions of 2/7. They all have the same simplest form. Okay. So you can find equivalent fractions by multiplying any fraction, or you can also find by dividing any fraction. Let's say for example I have 18 over 26. Now I can divide this fraction by 2, which will give me 9 over 13s, right? Similarly, if I have a fraction 27 over 39, now I can divide this fraction by 3, which will again give me 9 over 13. Now since I am getting the same simplest form, 9/13 and 9/13, these two fractions will be called as equivalent fractions. So equivalent fractions can be found by either multiplying the same number in the numerator and the denominator, or by dividing the original fraction with the same number in the numerator as well as denominator. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. So in this video, we saw what are fractions, then we saw what are like fractions, what are unlike fractions, then we saw proper and improper fractions. Then we also observed how to make proper and improper fraction to mixed form and how to make mixed form to improper fraction. And then we studied about equivalent fractions and simplest form or the lowest form. Okay. So this is basics of fraction. When all these basics are clear, then we'll in the next video see how to add, subtract fractions, how to solve word problems with fractions, and we'll take some real life examples also. Okay. If you have any doubts related to this video, kindly put them in the comment section. Thanks for watching the video. Kindly like, share and subscribe, and click on the bell icon so that you get the notifications when I release my next video. See you soon. Till then, bye bye, take care and have fun with math. I release